3 times. Once in the memory of those who have gone before. Once for those today that are present in our congregation. And once for the future. Sean? Good morning. Welcome to the Umpqua Unitarian Universalist Congregation, the church that puts its faith in you. This is a place where you can be yourself, but not by yourself. Whomever you are, and whoever you love, however you describe yourself or name the holy, you are welcome here. I'm Martha Sincula. I'm your service leader this morning. We are so glad that you're here with us today. I'm looking out and I am seeing a full house. It's thrilling to see all those wonderful faces and some new people. Welcome. I especially welcome those watching from home and also those of you who are visiting for the first time. Please stay after service for coffee and tea and conversation so we can all get to know each other better. Now, if you have one of these, please make sure that it's turned off. And I want to thank John, who's helped greet, and he's back there, and Jake, our media person, and Sean, our music person, and Annan, where did she go? She's still, oh, you're over there now. Annan, will you please stand up, because a lot of people don't know who you are. This is Annan Kohlberg, and she has been working with us, helping take care of any children that show up, and we've now made her a service assistant, and she is here to help us, an extra pair of eyes, ears, hands, feet, and helping greeters and all. So thank you, Annan, and welcome. And again, thanks to every one of you who are here with us today for caring to keep this important space vital. The other thing is that we acknowledge the people who came before us on this land called the Umpqua, whose name graces our congregation and the river that flows through this land. Here for thousands of years, loving this land and living in harmony, the Umpqua are still giving us gifts of action and wisdom. We make this land acknowledgement in recognition of the Umpqua and in beginning of atonement for harms done in the past are in our path towards healing. Today, we are delighted again to have Reverend Dennis Reynolds giving us the sermon. And as you know, he's serving our congregation as a developmental minister on a quarter-time basis for 1 calendar year. His office hours are on Tuesdays, 1 to 4. And he brings an extensive background, ministerial background, humor and insight, and I'm sure all of those who have had the pleasure of working with him have noticed how much fun he is to be in a meeting with him. And he brings out the best in all of us. And he's helping with current committees and the administration to help us grow and thrive. If you have a chance, take a look, and in our order of service, there are any of the announcements that we might have, and I'm seeing that we have the upcoming writers group. We do have a volunteer writers group, and they are going to present next week. And then on March 26th, we are going to have a sermon about welcoming congregations. And that should be very interesting. Laleen is putting that together. Thank you. Okay, now in our compassion for those in need and our congregation service to the larger Roseburg community, we will now collect combinations of both food and money to help those amongst us who are hungry, ill, and without shelter. The support of the fish pantry was a combined effort of several Roseburg churches. late, not, no, no, it's there. Not yet. Thank you.
Before we light our chalice, which is the traditional beginning of a service in our faith, I just want to share a little bit into preparation for the gala of the Oscars tonight, to explain a little bit about my choices of clothing. Many Unitarian Universalists don't regularly wear a stole in small congregations, and I started doing so when, after an online service in a discussion group, people said, your shirt, it was a Mexican shirt, looks like a stole. And I said, well, should I wear one? And they said, we'd like that. So I wear a stole out of popular request, and this particular one I'm quite proud of was a gift from a fabric artist at the Whidbey Island congregation that I served for many years before returning to Eugene. And this fabric matches a wall hanging that hangs in that sanctuary behind the pulpit. I used to pretend there that I could use it as camouflage and disappear. And it seemed appropriate for a conversation with you today about commitment to community. So we begin our service with words of a chalice lighting from Marta I. Vantine. We come together today to honor the universal community of seekers to which we all belong.
We gather today to share from our deepest place of safety, that we might nurture ourselves by celebrating one another.
We call into our presence this hour the ancestors whose love, labor, and commitment made it possible for us to be here today.
Let us call one another to the table of abundance, that we may feed on those fruits that sustain us and ask us to grow.
Let us be open this moment with hearts that have no borders. We invite you now to rise in body or in spirit for our opening hymn. For those who like to look at the music, it's number 361 in the hymnal, but lyrics will be projected.
Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful
I like that, whoever that accompanist was in that church whose music we recorded, I like that last chord in particular. I have a story I'd like to share. And I want to let people know, talking about my choice of clothing for today. I chose this tie, which if you look closer later, has lots of little frogs on it to honor our story from Leo Leone, It's Mine. I give this thought every Sunday morning. I think it's my theater major background that draws me to costuming for Sunday morning. And I've shared with you before several Leo Leone stories. I describe him as one of my favorite modern theologians and a heck of an illustrator. And if anybody wants to see the pictures better, you can invite it to come down here in the front. But if you think you can see him well from back there, that's okay too. Okay? It's Mine by Leo Leone. In the middle of Rainbow Pond, there was a small island. Smooth pebbles lined its beaches, and it was covered with ferns and leafy weeds. On the island lived 3 quarrelsome frogs named Milton, Rupert, and Lydia. They quarreled and quibbled from dawn to dusk. "Stay out of the pond," yelled Milton. "The water is mine." "Get off of the island," shouted Rupert. "The island is mine." "The air is mine," screamed Lydia as she screamed to catch a butterfly. And so it went. One day, a large toad appeared before them. "I live on the other side of the island," he said, "but I can hear you shouting, 'It's mine, it's mine, it's mine,' all day long. There is no peace because of your endless bickering. You can't go on like this." With that, the toad slowly turned around and hopped away through the weeds. No sooner had he left than Milton ran off with a large worm. The others hopped after him. "Worms are for everybody," they cried. But Milton croaked defiantly, "Not this one, it's mine." Suddenly, the sky darkened and a rumble of distant thunder circled the island. Rain filled the air and the water turned to mud. The island grew smaller and smaller. It was swallowed up by the rising flood. The frogs were scared. I think this might have been a California pond these days. Desperately, they clung to the few slippery stones that still rose above the water. It was getting kind of scary. But soon, these too began to disappear. There was only one rock left, and there the frogs huddled. Trembling from cold and fright. But they felt better now that they were together, sharing the same fears and hopes. Little by little, the flood subsided, the rain grew more gentle, and then stopped. But look, the frogs noticed. It wasn't a stone at all. They were on the back of the toad. "You saved us," shouted the frogs as they recognized the toad. The next morning, the water had cleared. Sun rays chased silver minnows in the sandy bottom of the pond, and joyfully the frogs jumped in, and side by side they swam all around the island. Together they leaped after the swarms of butterflies that fill the air. And later, when they rested in the weeds, they felt happy in a way they had never been before. Isn't it peaceful, said Milton. And isn't it beautiful, said Rupert. And you know what else, said Lydia? Know what, the others asked. It's ours, she said. That's the end of the story. So I invite you to rise in body and spirit as we sing the children out. The lyric is in our order of service, and again will be projected. Go now in peace. Please rise. And kids, it'll be time to head on downstairs with Annan and have some fun stuff going on down there. Actually, if you really want to stay and listen to grown-ups talk, that is an option. But it might not be your favorite thing. But just know it's your choice. It's quiet down here, and there's far more toys and art supplies downstairs. Okay, let's do it. I'm just going to describe a little story about the lyrical differences between the one that projected the recording we found and what's in the order of service. What's in the order of service are the words written by the songwriter, that the songwriter has asked people to please honor their work. And so in that written version, that's the choice this congregation made. But anytime we sing that song or any other lyric here, you have an option of changing the words in a way that resonates most truly for you. Okay? So now it'll be time for some sharing within the community and offertory. Martha.
Now's the time in our service where we share our joys and concerns with lighted or silent candles. So those of you who have something that you'd like to share, please form a line over here to my right. And for those of you who have a spoken candle, please give your name and be as brief as you can.
to me, come to me.
Did you get the box?
We've got the meditation.
I don't know, that comes after, comes there after.
Oh, right. And it's all about the amount. How could I forget? The offertory.
And I need the box.
We're working it out up here.
I used to be tall. Now's the time in our service where we do collect money. And we know that our financial contributions for this congregation come from sacrifice and hard work. And we are so grateful for this and commit together to ensure that the funds we gather collectively do a greater good for that instead of just alone, just people here and there. May there be an offering to sustain and grow the life and mission of this congregation, and may we give in love and in hope. For the gifts which we have received, may we be truly grateful, and may we be committed to using these gifts to make a difference in our world and to expand our beloved community.
I was going to say I invite you to settle in, but we seem pretty settled in. I invite you now to sit in a manner that's comfortable for you, that allows the breath to flow more easily. And I want to share some words, and then we will share a time in silent meditation together, just being together in this place, in this time. The words are from Reverend Leslie Takahashi. Here, in this place of peace, may we find hope. Here, in this place of connection, may we find life-giving community. Here, in this place of rest, let the unrest of our hearts turn us towards justice. Here in this space made sacred by memories of connection, let us feel ourselves part of the new that grows from the old in the spiraling unity of years. One last cleansing breath in and out as Sean gifts us with music.
Love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. It's just like a magic penny, hold it tight and you won't have any. Then it's spend it and you'll have so many that roll all over the floor. For love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. Money's dandy and we like to use it, but love is better if you don't refuse it. It's a treasure and you'll never lose it unless you lock up your door. For love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. So let's go dancing to the break of day, and if there's a piper we can pay for. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. Love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. Is that the same chord?
As the piano chord, no. It's another nice chord. Martha, we've got a reading up here.
That's right. I was all set to settle in for a week.
The reading Martha and I are going to share with you this morning is from St. Mary of Beacon Street, otherwise known as Mary Oliver. And she got that name because Mary Oliver, by the way, who many Unitarian Universalists would like to claim as ours, was proud to be an Episcopalian. But she was published by Beacon Street Press, our Unitarian Universalist publishing entity, thus the name St. Mary of Beacon Street. This poem is Logos.
Why worry about the loaves and fishes? If you say the right words, the wine expands. If you say them with love, and the felt ferocity of that love, and the felt necessity of that love, the fish explode into many. Imagine him speaking, and don't worry about what is reality, or what is pain, or what is mysterious. If you were there, it was all those things. If you can imagine it, it is all those things. Eat, drink, be happy. Accept the miracle. Accept, too, each spoken word, spoken with love.
If you can imagine it, that's my favorite line. Now, as I'm sure many of you know, the loaves and fishes the poet describes is a reference to a story from Christian scripture, and also, no doubt, the name for the fish collection you take here every Sunday. Now, in that story from the Gospels, a huge crowd of some 5,000 plus people had come to hear Jesus preach. As it grew dark, Jesus' disciples suggested, maybe, Master, we should take a break and so the people can go into town and get some food. Jesus' answer was, no, let's feed them here. And his disciples said, but we only have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Jesus said, "Bring them to me," and as the Christian text in the book of Matthew reports it. Taking the loaves and the 2 fishes, Jesus looked up into the heavens and blessed and broke the loaves and gave them to the disciples. And the disciples gave them to the crowd, and all ate and were filled. And they took up what was left over of the broken pieces, 12 baskets full. All ate and were filled, and there were 12 baskets left over. How the heck did that happen? The poet advised us to not worry about what is reality or what is plain or what is mysterious. If you were there, it was all those things. If you can imagine, it was all those things. So eat, drink, be happy, accept the miracle. Accept the miracle. Well, as a Unitarian Universalist, I'm a bit of a religious skeptic. Or perhaps the truth is, because I'm a religious skeptic, I'm a Unitarian Universalist. I'm reluctant to immediately accept supernatural miracles. So I ask myself again, how could such a thing possibly have happened? And I've heard accounts that suggest how such a miraculous thing could have actually been accomplished. For miracles can become possible through generosity. It could have happened if many, if not all, in the crowd did not merely bring food for themselves, but brought food to share with their friends and family. And when the basket was passed around, rather than take from the basket, they contributed a portion of the food that they had brought. Such acts of generosity could create a reality where the entire community was fed with 12 baskets full left over. A miracle becomes possible through the act of sharing through generosity. Human action can make what seems miraculously actually happen. I want to share another story with you about a miraculous feeding of the multitudes, what I call the miracle of breakfast in bed. And it's not from such ancient time, it's from the latter years of the last millennium. It's from 1969. And it took place in a field in northern and upstate New York called Woodstock. You know, Woodstock, that iconic rock concert where some 500,000 mostly young people attended. You no doubt have heard or may have made up your own stories about that awesome event. You've heard about the music and the mud and the often drug-assisted mellow mood. There were far more people there than anyone had expected, and the food vendors who were selling hot dogs and such soon sold out. And unlike in Jesus' time, most folks did not bring plenty of food along with them. So a collection of communes set up free kitchens, and in the morning of the second day, Wavy Gravy, the name a community leader and jester Hugh Romney took, walked out on the stage and announced, "This morning we're going to have breakfast in bed for 400,000 people." I love it. Breakfast in bed for 400,000. He went on to say, now it's not going to be steak and eggs, but it will be good food. In the hours that followed, tens of thousands of Dixie cups of granola were produced and filled and passed among the crowds. I've read accounts from people who were there who, because they had a good spot right in front of the stage, did not want to leave to go find some food, but were really getting hungry when all of a sudden, miraculously, somebody handed them a cup full of granola, and they were fed. It seemed rather miraculous. Romney's Hog Farm Commune and the other communities and collectives set up free kitchens at the festival that cooked up massive quantities of granola and brown rice and vegetables, and the people were fed. And the diets of a generation were changed. For many in my age cohort spent many years following eating lots of granola and rice and veggies. Wavy Gravy that day had proclaimed from the stage, "We're all feeding each other, man." Such generosity seems magical and miraculous, and you know what? Entirely doable. When we set aside notions of mine and move towards notions of ours, all can be fed. Let me offer one more story. It's a story about a fictitious person's encounter with the divine. One day, this person said to God, "God, I would like to see what heaven and hell are like." And God showed them 2 doors. Inside the first one, in the middle of the room, was a massive large table with a large pot of vegetable stew. It smelled delicious and made their mouth water. But the people sitting around the table were thin and sickly. There was plenty of food, but they appeared to be famished and starving. They were holding spoons with very long handles, and each found it possible to reach into the pot. But the handles were so long, they couldn't reach their mouths with the nourishing stew. The seekers shuddered at the sight of their misery and suffering. God said, "You have seen hell." Behind the second door, the room appeared almost exactly the same. There was that same large round table with the large pot of wonderful stew that made their mouth water. The people had the same long-handled spoons, but they were well-nourished and plump, laughing and talking. The person said, "I don't understand." God smiled. "It's simple," they said. "Love only requires one skill." These people learned early on to share and to reach out their spoons and feed one another. They learned generosity, and they lovingly fed each other. Universalism says we are called to create heaven here and now in this time on this planet. So we're working on that continuing lesson of generosity. As a love-centered faith, we've gotten pretty good at learning how to feed one another. When we each make a commitment to everyone who joins this loving covenant community, all can be fed. And I'm not talking about being fed with bread or fish or granola and brown rice, though the soup and bread we've shared here and the cookies that sometimes miraculously appear on a Sunday morning do feed us. I'm talking about what happens here that feeds deeper longings within all of us. Here, our longing to be in a loving community is fed. Here, our longing for connection to that we call spirit, what some call God or goddess, is fed. Here, our longing to be together just as we are, without exclusion or judgment, is fed. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you name the holy, here you can be fed. Because here we feed each other. We feed each other as a sharing and caring community. Now, to create and sustain community is hard work. Because people in the past, our ancestors, and many who are here in this room today, gave of their time and their treasure, this place, this community is here for us today. We honor the commitment and the gifts of our ancestors as we engage in the work of determining what kind of ancestors we might be. I want to spend part of the time here today, this morning, talking about the pragmatic realities of what a covenanted commitment to this community looks like and how it is manifested by what we do and by what we give. Now, a covenant is a commitment not just between those of us gathered in this room right now, but it's an agreement over time, a commitment that existed before many of us got here, and with our effort will exist through time. Such a commitment requires more than thought. It requires more than belief. It requires effort, commitments of time, and yes, friends, it requires resources, otherwise known as money. Now, money is a strange and powerful force in our society. Its acquisition shapes so much of our culture. Yet, we are hesitant to talk about it in many settings, especially in church. It's almost a taboo subject. Now, I think that's in part true because it's not equally distributed. Some of us have significant wealth, or at least are comfortable. We have safe, comfortable homes and reliable, perhaps nearly new cars. We can travel and dine out, attend plays and concerts, and more. Others have very limited, perhaps fixed incomes, and keeping up with rent and necessities takes almost all of what we have. Yet I believe all have the ability to give something. At my house, we are comfortable. Because I worked for 30 years as a public employee, I have a pension in addition to the Social Security that both my wife Suzanne and I receive each month. Now, Suzanne worked in nonprofits, so what little retirement she had, we invested in building our home, which is admittedly lovely. We inherited some money a while ago, which funded a home purchase. And that equity made seminary an option for me. I drew out of my home equity to go to seminary, and it allowed for a career do-over for Suzanne. We have been blessed. And we're both deeply committed to being generous and fiscally responsible, which is kind of a challenging balance for us sometimes. So we've chosen to find ways to give that feeds what we want to see in the world and takes care of us too. We've found the notion of giving away a percentage of what we have is an approach that works for us. So now, aspirationally, we would like to achieve the goal that wise teachers in ancient times suggested of tithing, of giving away 10% of one's earnings. We've considered such a goal because tithing can be a beneficial religious practice. Tithing became, long ago, as an act of gratitude for one's blessings rather than an obligation. Giving can help foster an attitude of gratitude, and such an attitude encourages giving. It's all a very nice, positive behavior loop. So giving feels good. We all get to experience that good feeling that giving gives every Christmas season and on a beloved's birthday. I feel a similar worth inside when I know that an organization that I give to does good work in the world, be it educating children in South Africa, feeding hungry neighbors, or sheltering the unhoused. I give, too, to political causes and candidates, and sometimes to art organizations. Suzanne and I then try to total up and see if we're getting to 10%. Some years we've made it, but we don't always do that. That kind of approach has been referenced as a modern tithe. And sometimes it's an anecdote to a sense that, I'm giving lots. sometimes you can really total up how much we are giving. By the way, Unitarian Universalist many surveys have suggested are the second wealthiest denomination in America. The Episcopalians on an average are a little wealthier. But some of those same surveys say as a percent of income, Unitarian Universalists give the smallest percentage to our churches. Some of it suggests we give to the Sierra Club and we give to other things. But I suggest you might want to total it up and see how much we really give. Keeping track is a way to see how generous we truly are. And wealthy people, many surveys shows, are less generous as a percentage of income than many people with lesser means. Giving away millions for a Jeff Bezos or a wealthy superstar, which is lifted up as great generosity, is often a lesser percentage of their income than one with lesser means might give to fish or another local charity. Though at my house we do not always get to 10%, we make sure our commitment to our church is strong. We do this because we believe that what Unitarian Universalism offers to the world is vital and needed. And besides, we also get a lot from church. We get fed there in the deepest ways. Currently, our pledge for this upcoming year, which we just submitted at the end of February to the Eugene congregation, is a bit more than 3% of our net annual income. We increased it somewhat this year because in addition to the fact that I have a part-time job this year, we both got cost of living increases in our Social Security. And because we know that inflation impacts the church and all its employees, just as it does our household, we know that the church needs more money. And it feels right, not because it's easy. We will need to give up some things to make it work. More dinners out and daily lattes are certainly not affordable. And that summer trip to England to see the grandson is iffy at present, and maybe we won't be able to buy those desired electric bikes this year. We give as a spiritual practice, what the Buddhists call right action. Like Muslims, we consider giving as a pillar of our faith, or as the Christian Gospel of Luke counsels, to whom much is given, much is required. By the way, I've seen this percentage of income approach work for those who have less money than I do. I have a family member who lives entirely on Social Security with occasional dips into a small inheritance. Their income is less than $1,600 a month, and yet they contribute each month $50 to a program that funds preschools in South Africa that my daughter was involved with. That donation is just a bit over 3% of their income. It means no lunches out and thrift store clothing, but I know it makes them feel good. As most of you know, and most of you received it, a letter went out from lay leaders and me this week, letting you know that it's time for the congregation's annual pledge drive. So it's the time to discern how much you are willing and able to give to this congregation for the 23-24 budget year. July through June is the church year. The congregation budget will be shaped by what you are willing and able to give. One key budget fact I can tell you right now is that this church needs more money. Pledge cards will be available at the end of the service. They're right down here in the front in a basket that's partially alphabetically sorted. So there's one in there with your name on it. And if there's not one in there and your name on it, there are some extra blank ones. And they look like this, okay? Some of you, no doubt, arrived this morning with a figure firmly in mind. I ask you to ponder for a moment, perhaps after hearing this sermon and being here today, if you might give just a little more than you had in mind. Maybe $10 a month more as a step. By the way, I spent almost that much money for the croissant and a latte I bought on the way down here this morning. So I know I could stretch a little bit more without great suffering. If the notion of percentages makes sense to you and you know pretty closely your total income, then a quick cell phone calculation can get you to your pledge amount. Or you may want to take the pledge card away and mail it or bring it back after you've pondered and discussed what seems like a generous, less doable amount for you. We ask that you make a pledge rather than simply put money in the basket on Sunday morning so we can plan for an operating budget for the next year. Now, these cards have a flip side. On one side, it talks about money, and the other side asks you to consider how you might give of the most generously of the most precious thing you have, your time. Because we need help to make this community happen. This community needs you. We need help with events and Sunday services to feed us all spiritually. We need folks who will help with lunches and other gatherings. We need people to help us in decision making. We need those who will help welcome new members and friends, and those who will offer comfort to those in need. Please indicate on that side of the card how you would best help to feed all. Please give as you're willing and able, and give from the heart. Give not because you must. As Universalists, we firmly hold to the belief your salvation is not linked to how much you give to the church. Give because you can and because your heart calls you toward generosity. Gifts given in a love-centered community like this one are gifts of love. And remember, as the song Sean shared reminds us, love is something. If you give it away, you end up having more. May we collectively make it so. Now, this is the time, the tradition of this congregation, for what we call the congregational conversation. And you may have some comments to share, but most of all, I'm hoping you will speak through your pledge card, right? So, but words, we are word people, so thoughts and comments people might want to share at this time. Martha can bring you a mic.
Anyone want to have anything to say? JC, I see a hand sort of. Okay. And Sharon, I'll get you.
I tell you that this place is my spiritual home where I can relax and really be who I am becoming. And I really think now that I'm 87 years old that that's what the soul has been trying to get me to do for a number of years. But the point is, I also know, because I've been here since the beginning, that working together is important. And I had a little talk with somebody here, I think someone sitting just behind me, that you don't need to know how. You can learn how as we work together through things. So if you've never been a treasurer, that doesn't exclude you from being our treasurer or any other board focus. So you don't need to have done it before. We'll all learn how together. But please, we need you. We're very tired.
And that may be one of those where the preacher just says, "Amen, sister."
Amen.
Hello, I'm Sharon Barlow Palm, and what I've worked on more pledge campaigns than I can even think of. It's not my favorite thing to do. is to ask people for money.
Mine neither.
But what I've discovered at somewhere along the line is I think we have a generosity gene. And when we tweak that gene, we do give from the heart. And it goes right to your spirit. For me, I have to find the sweet spot of satisfying that gene and what I can really afford. And then, as you said, stretch it a little bit. So that's just a thought.
And welcome back to this congregation.
So glad to see you again. Anyone else have a comment, a concern? An amen?
Right, you have opportunities to speak loudly too after a bit.
Wait, I have somebody else in the audience.
I just want to say that for a couple of years during COVID, I was handed the pledge collection job, and it was challenging because I'd never done that before, and I hate asking people for money. I don't mind giving, what I can. I've never heard an ask so wonderful. That was amazing. And the other thing I wanted to say is, during COVID, we didn't make as much as we would have liked to because many of our congregants moved away and some passed along. So today, this year, we're kind of making up for some of that.
As chair of the service committee, those couple years that we weren't here in the building and we did all the remotes, maybe some of you remember, we did 90 remotes. But those are the Sundays that no plate was passed. So we're in the hole. Just that's where we are. And this place is really important to many of us. I can see smiling faces, and I was really happy to see so many people here today that we've not seen before. Welcome back, Sharon and Charles. That's hard to say. Anyone else have something else to say?
Okay, then we invite you all to join in song. Please rise in body or in spirit for our closing hymn. It's number 318. It's actually not our closing, but our ending hymn for this part. We Would Be One. 318.
We would be one as now we join singing our hymn of love to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. We would be one in living for each other to show to all a new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow a nobler world than we have known today. We would be one in searching for that meaning which binds our hearts and points us on our way. As one we pledge ourselves to greater service, with love and justice strive to make us free.
Closing words of benediction. The words are from Sobonfu Some. Community is the guiding light of the tribe.
Where by people come together in order to fulfill a specific purpose,
to help others fulfill their purpose.
and to take care of one another.
Salam, shalom, amen, and blessed be. And now again, as is the tradition of this congregation, our closing song, Go Lift It Up. Go in peace, go in love. We'll put the cards up on a chair so that they're a little easier to get at. As I noted before, they're alphabetically sorted. And then we've got a large basket to put the sealed envelopes in. Reminder that pledges are confidential. A very limited number of folks will know who gave what. We'll be sharing totals as they come in. Pledges will be accepted through Easter Sunday next month. So come on down, get your card, or get a coffee first, or whatever.